I've been painting some sheep in watercolour this week, and in this video I'll talk about why edges are important and how I use them in this painting. I want to focus on edges this week because they are a really important element of a successful painting. Paint edges can be soft, hard or broken. I made use of both soft and hard edges when I painted this sheep, so I'll use this painting to demonstrate them. Generally, a soft edge is one where the edge is less defined, and we normally paint them on wet paper. We can paint them on dry paper if we use another brush quickly to soften the edge of the paint. A hard edge, on the other hand, is very defined, and we paint them on dry paper. Pay attention to your paint edges because you can use edges to direct the viewer's eye to a particular area of your painting. You can also use edges to create different moods with your paintings. Use soft edges for dreamy, sensuous paintings and hard edges for bold, forceful paintings. Usually we use a combination of both hard and soft edges in our paintings to stop everything from looking flat. I said that you can use edges to focus attention. It's best to use hard edges where you want to draw the viewer's eye and soft edges when you want to create the illusion of distance. You might use hard edges on geometric or angular shapes and soft edges on round and soft objects. With this sheep, I knew that I needed to make use of soft edges to describe the softness of the wool, but I also needed to use hard edges to direct attention to a particular area. So I'll show you how I did that. But first, I'd like to thank Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Skillshare is an online learning community where you can get inspired and learn new skills. I joined Skillshare about 7 years ago and I was amazed with the variety of classes. I was interested in learning to use coloured pencils at the time, and I found this class by Kendall Haligas. It's called Painting with Coloured Pencils, a Beginner's Guide. In this class, I learned lots of hints and tips about working in coloured pencils. I learned how to work in layers, how to blend the pencil with mineral spirits, and how to burnish the colours together. I sometimes used coloured pencils to enhance my watercolour paintings, but this class showed me how I could use pencils on their own to create a painting from start to finish. If you have a specific skill that you're trying to learn, then Skillshare is the perfect place to start. You can find a heap of classes on painting in watercolour. I've made 13 watercolour classes for Skillshare myself. You'll find drawing and illustration classes, photography classes, self-help classes, even yoga classes. All you do is type in what you're searching for, and you'll find hundreds of different classes on that topic. You name it, it's on there. New premium classes are launched each week, so there's always something new to discover, and the entire catalogue of classes is now available with subtitles in Spanish, French, Portuguese and German. If you'd like to explore Skillshare and have a look at their library of classes for free, the first 1,000 people to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. Okay, we'll have a look at this sheep now. I painted this on Arches cold-pressed watercolour paper, and I used Winsor & Newton watercolour paints. The reference photo that I used was taken by Yoon Bei Cho, and I downloaded it from Unsplash website. I want to paint in the background to begin with, but I don't want a hard edge along here. Because hard edges tend to draw the eye, I don't want to draw the eye to the back of the sheep. It's not important. So I need a soft edge along there. I'm going to wet the background with water. So what I need to do is put the water onto the back of the sheep as well. So instead of stopping my water along the back of the sheep here, I need to take the water onto the sheep. So I wet the sheep and the background at the same time. I'll wet this top right section all at once. I mixed some burnt umber and Windsor blue red shade together, and that's what I painted the background in with. So here I'm running it along the edge of the back of the sheep, and then I tilt the board up to make the paint run up to the top of the paper. Put a bit more paint there to make it move more. Some of that paint will flow down onto the sheep because the paper's wet where the sheep is as well. It's flat on my table again now. Now I'm going to do the top left corner. So I need to put some water onto the top of the head here because I want a soft edge along the top of the head as well. When I put the water on, I take it onto the top of the sheep's head. I don't want it on the ear, so I paint around the ear. Down here, this is the front of the sheep. I want a hard edge there, which will draw the eye. So here I don't put the water on the sheep. This time I want it to drift up into the left corner. So I've got my board on an angle, I've lifted it off the table. Here some of the blue paint will go onto the head. That's okay, I'm not worried about that. Careful around the ear, don't want any blue paint on the ear. And then I tilt it up to that top left corner. And then I put a little bit more paint there to make the paint drift up there. It's flat on the table again. Now I'll start to run it down the side of the sheep. Paper's still nice and wet. Here I'm bringing in the edge of the sheep. I've left a gap through here because I thought I'd try and get a lost edge there. Now I've tilted my board to the side so that the paint will drift over to that left-hand side. And there it is dry now. Got a hard edge along here. Along the ear I've got hard edges. Up the top here I've got my soft edges. And along the back here I've got soft edges. When I started to wash in the wool on the back of the sheep, I worked wet on wet again. And I wet the background as well as the sheep so that the brown paint would drift into the background to create that soft edge along the back of it. And hopefully that will create the illusion of distance along the back edge. Once I'd washed that in, it was still wet. I came back with a little 00 liner brush and some darker brown, and I ran that along the back edge as well, just to define it a bit more. I still want the soft edges, but I wanted to be able to see it better. I worked wet on the head as well. I'll bring in this front section or the edge, but I might switch to my smaller brush now, my 00, just so I don't flood the paper with paint and so that I can get a nice little jagged edge there. The same as the back, I wanted soft edges along the top of the head. So I wet the background above the head the same way I did on the back of the sheep. When I put the paint on, I dabbed it on so that I could leave some white paper showing, and hopefully it would begin to look a little bit like wool right from this very first layer of paint. I worked wet on the front of the sheep as well. This time I tried to create some directional lines in the wool. While it was wet, I dropped in a little bit of the background colour just to add interest and to repeat the background colour. When I had that first layer of wool all over the sheep, I mixed up a really dark brown from Burnt Umber and Windsor Blue Red shade. I kept the water out of the mixture, so not only was it nice and dark, but it was also creamy and thick. Then I wet the head with water again, and I used a small brush. This is a 00 liner brush, and some of that dark paint to paint on some darker areas in the wool. I wanted soft edges on these marks because I was painting wool, and wool is soft and pliable, and it's not going to have too many hard edges on it. I did the same thing on the body. I wet it first, just small sections at a time so that I could get the paint on there before it dried. At this stage of the painting, I've got soft edges all over the wool. As I said earlier, soft edges can suggest a soft or rounded surface. Soft edges will also tend to push things further away, and that's why I use the soft edges on the back end of the sheep. I want to draw the viewer's eye to the head and the front of the sheep. So to do that, I need a few more hard edges. So now I'm going to add some hard edges here and there on the wool, just to tell the viewer to look here. So here I've got the dark mixture of brown, and I'm painting on dry paper. I'm trying to work over the top of the darker lines that I've already got there. So I'm trying to leave the lighter areas, not put any paint on them. So here I'm working on the head over the top of the areas that I painted earlier. So you can still see the soft edges, but I've got a few hard edges there now. I did the same thing on the body. Here, though, I softened some of the edges with another brush. So this bigger brush has just got water on it. So I put the paint on with the little brush, and then I'd soften some of the edges with the larger brush. And again, I'm just working over the areas that I've already painted. I'm trying not to lose the lighter areas. So this is adding a bit of detail and contrast, which will draw the viewer's eye. Well, that's what I was hoping. After all that was dry, I painted a darker wash underneath the head, just to create more of a shadow there, and again to create more contrast. So here I'm painting on wet paper, and I'm using that same brown mixture. I also wet the head or the face of the sheep, and here I'm painting a really dark shadow against the edge of the wool. This is the same brown mixture that I used on the wool. Here I want to add a little bit more definition to the top of the head. I still want soft edges, but I just want a bit more colour there. So I've wet the top of the head with water. This is the dark brown mixture, my liner brush or 00 brush. That's a bit wet. So I just tapped this side of my little brush on my cloth to release some of the water without releasing the paint that's in it. So I've still got my soft edges there, but they're a bit darker now. I stood back and looked at it and decided that I wanted a little bit more detail on the body, not very much. So here I've wet the paper with water and I'm using the same dark brown mixture. When I was happy with it, I took off the washi tape from around the edges and I cut the painting from the board. And there it is there, finished. So using a combination of soft and hard edges helped me to achieve what I set out to achieve. This soft edge along the back of the sheep helps to make it look like it's further away, So does the lack of detail there. These hard edges down the front of the sheep help to bring it forward. The soft edges on the wool help to make the wool look soft. And the hard edges on the dark brown detail areas help to add some contrast and direct the viewer's eye to the front of the sheep. Before I painted this painting, I did 2 practice paintings first. This is the first one. I had a hard edge along the back of the sheep here that I didn't like because I thought it drew attention to that area. So I did a second one and I was happier with the second painting. I made the edge along the back of the sheep soft, but with this one I felt that I needed a bit more detail on the front, and I thought these areas here on the side were a bit pale. So then I corrected all of those things with this final painting. I'll be posting the full-length tutorial of this painting on my Patreon site soon, so join us over there if you're interested in learning more. Thanks for watching. Please give this video a like and make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you don't already, and I'll see you in my next video. I want to focus on edges this week because they are a really important element of a 666 painting. I also needed to use hard edges to direct attention to a particular area. You name it, it's on there. New premium classes are launched each week. They're launched each week. So plenty to choose from. New premium classes are launched each week. I did it again. They are launched each week. You name it, it's on there. New premium classes are launched each week.